The church bells were still echoing through the gray, heavy sky when the little girl stood frozen at the grave. Her tiny fingers clutched a single white rose, trembling as though it could slip from her hand at any moment. She was only 12 years old, yet grief had aged her face beyond her years. Her father, the only person who ever truly loved her, was gone, lowered into the earth that would now keep him forever. As the soil fell in dull, hollow thuds against the coffin, her heart sank deeper than she could bear. But what awaited her after that funeral was far crueler than she could have ever imagined. Beside her stood her stepmother, tall and elegant, her face carefully painted with sorrow for the crowd, though her eyes glistened with something entirely different, relief. And beside the stepmother was a man no one really paid much attention to, a so-called family friend who stood a little too close to her, his hand brushing hers in small, secretive touches. The girl saw it all. She had seen it for years, the whispered conversations, the way her father's wife looked at this man when her father's back was turned. But who would listen to a child's warnings? Who would believe her when she said her stepmother was unfaithful? Her father hadn't. And now he never could. After the funeral ended and the mourners drifted away, the little girl tried to follow her stepmother back to the family car. But the woman spun on her heels, eyes cold as steel, and snapped, "You don't live with me anymore. You're old enough to fend for yourself. From now on, you are no burden of mine." The man smirked at her side, as if enjoying the cruel spectacle. Confused, the girl stammered, "But where will I go? Papa wanted me to stay in our house." The stepmother's lips curled into a bitter smile. "The house is mine now. You," she looked her up and down with disdain, "are nothing. Be gone." And with that, the car door slammed shut, leaving the little girl standing in the cold cemetery parking lot with no home, no family, and no future. That night, she wandered the streets with her small backpack and the rose she had picked from her father's grave. The city seemed louder, harsher, and far more dangerous without the protection of her father's hand to hold. Hunger gnawed at her belly, but worse was the ache of loneliness. She sat under a flickering streetlight, tears streaking down her face as she whispered into the night, "Papa, why did you leave me here? What am I supposed to do now?" Days turned into weeks. She slept on benches, begged for scraps, and endured the cruel stares of strangers who looked away quickly, as if her misery was contagious. Each day, she grew thinner, weaker. Her heart still clung to one hope, that her stepmother would change her mind, that perhaps one day she would open the door and let her back inside. But when she finally gathered the courage to approach the mansion again, she saw through the gates her stepmother laughing in the garden, arm in arm with. Just when despair seemed to crush every last bit of strength she had, fate intervened. On a cold evening, as she sat outside a cafe shivering and clutching her empty stomach, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. From it stepped a tall man in a sharp suit, his eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on her. Something about her small, fragile figure caught his attention, and he walked straight toward her. "Are you all right, little one?" he asked, kneeling so his gaze was level with hers. His voice was deep, but gentle. She shook her head, too ashamed to speak. He noticed the tear-stained face, the threadbare clothes, the way she curled protectively around herself. "Where are your parents?" he asked softly. At that, the dam broke. She sobbed uncontrollably and choked out, "Papa's gone, and they don't want me anymore." The man's heart clenched. He pulled off his coat and wrapped it around her trembling shoulders. "You're coming with me," he said firmly, not as a suggestion but as a promise. What the little girl didn't know then was that this man was a millionaire, wealthy beyond imagination, but more importantly, he was a man who had once been lost and broken himself. He recognized the look of hopelessness in her eyes, because he had carried it once in his own. The days that followed changed everything. The man brought her into his home, not a cold mansion filled with false smiles, but a warm estate where kindness filled the halls. He gave her food, clothes, and most precious of all, safety. At first, she could not trust it. She ate cautiously, as though the meals might be taken away. She slept curled in a corner of the bed, ready to run. But slowly, his patience and gentle words softened her fear. For the first time since her father's death, she began to smile again. Challenges did not end there. The stepmother, greedy and furious, learned of the girl's new life and tried to contest her late husband's will. She demanded everything for herself, but the truth finally began to surface about her affair, about the cruel abandonment. The millionaire, standing beside the girl like the father she had lost, hired lawyers and uncovered documents her true father had left behind, a trust in her name, meant for her future. The stepmother had tried to bury it, but she could not bury the truth forever. Court battles followed. The little girl faced her stepmother again, but this time she was not trembling and alone. She held the millionaire's hand tightly as he whispered, "You are not nothing. You are worth everything." When the final verdict declared that the estate would pass to the girl as her father had wished, the stepmother stormed out, defeated, her lover trailing behind her. The girl had not only a new home now but a future secure in her own right. Yet what mattered most was not the wealth, it was the love she had gained from a man who chose to step into her life when she had no one. He became her guardian, her teacher, her family. And as the year